Hello and welcome to ARIRANG News. Filling in for Laah Hyun-kyung this week, I'm Lee Ji-yoon in Seoul. Reunification is on top of the government's agenda today. Related diplomatic ministries and agencies suggest ways to eventually unify the divided Korean peninsula. There are reports that a Korean teenager who went missing in Turkey might have joined the Islamic State in Syria. Is Korea set to become the next Silicon Valley in Asia? Our reporter takes an in-depth look at the country's startup fever and what the Korean government has been doing to foster startups. The South Korean government has many things on its to-do list when it comes to reunifying the two Koreas. So on Monday, the related diplomatic ministries got together to talk about how the country could better prepare for a possible future reunification. Our Hwang Sung-hee starts us off.
South Korea is rolling up its sleeves to reunify the Korean peninsula. 4 government ministries and institutions in charge of diplomacy and security presented a blueprint for 2015 on Monday, focusing on practical reunification preparations. Led by the Unification Ministry, the plan includes securing peace and stability on the peninsula by stepping up national security against any North Korean threats. South Korea will also bolster strategic cooperation with countries like the United States and China to denuclearize Pyongyang. Building a platform for national consent on reunification is another key project. 92% of South Koreans were born after the peninsula was divided in two. Seoul is planning various joint cultural events with Pyongyang and more classes on reunification at schools to narrow the gap between South and North Koreans. South Korea is seeking to hold government-level talks with North Korea this year to reach fundamental solutions for humanitarian issues like war-separated families. Hundreds of thousands of families remain torn apart for more than 6 decades after being separated by the Korean War. Seoul also plans to propose jointly celebrating the 70th anniversary of independence from Japanese rule. South Korea will actively seek the support of the international community by explaining that a reunified Korea will be beneficial. It will speed up regional economic projects like the Eurasia Initiative, an ambitious vision to build a new economic bloc involving landlocked nations in Eurasia, Korea, China, and Japan. And along with these plans, the government says it will work to make North Korea a key partner in its efforts for reunification. Hwang Sung-hee, ARIRANG News.
And in response to those plans, President Park Geun-hye says the two Koreas should start discussing preparations for unification. She then called on officials to seek conditions for dialogue that would draw a positive response from North Korea. This comes as Seoul's proposal for talks on inter-Korea issues, including the resumption of reunions for families separated by the Korean War, continues to go unanswered by Pyongyang. President Park then stressed South Korea should take the lead in working with the international community to denuclearize the North and achieve a peaceful unification on the Korean peninsula. North Korea is saying there will be no family reunions unless South Korea removes the sanctions it imposed on the North. It's talking about the sanctions that Seoul imposed on Pyongyang after the North torpedoed a South Korean warship in 2010. According to its propaganda website, the North criticized the South for holding military drills with the United States and letting activists fly anti-Pyongyang leaflets across the border. Saying that the ball is in South Korea's court, the website said the two Koreas will be able to resolve the issue of family reunions and improve inter-Korea relations only when such preconditions are met. So you might think that South Korean firms operating within the Kaesong industrial complex have a tough time given North Korea's history of pulling the plug on inter-Korean projects. In reality, it's quite the opposite. Listed companies there have been performing very well with their sales growth and profits outstripping other local businesses. With more, here's our Kim Min-ji.
Listed South Korean firms with operations at the Kaesong Industrial Complex have been faring well despite inter-Korean relations blowing hot and cold over the years. According to the Corporate Association of the Kaesong Industrial Complex, the company's average sales rose nearly 120% between 2005 and 2013. Their operating profits also jumped more than 140% over the same period. This translates into a compound annual growth rate of about 10% in terms of sales and 12% in operating profit. South Korean firms entered the Kaesong industrial complex in 2004, and full operations began in December that year when it started production. The firms tend to suffer when tensions are high on the Korean peninsula, and they were hit the hardest in 2013 when North Korea unilaterally shut down the complex for 6 months. However, despite such drawbacks, experts say cheap labor is an advantage that boosts the firm's competitiveness. And with half of the list of firms in the complex also logging double-digit growth rates in net profits, their performances stand out from the rest of the South Korean corporate sector. Recent data shows Korean companies reported an average of $5.5 of net profits on every $100 of sales last year. That's below the global average of $7.9. Korean firms' profitability also fell by nearly 3 percentage points in the past 3 years, the second worst corporate showing among 25 major economies. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
There are reports coming in that a young Korean man who went missing in Turkey might have joined the Islamic State in Syria. Authorities in Korea say they have found pictures of Islamic State-related material on the man's computer. Nothing has been confirmed yet, though, as Korea and Turkey try to find out where he went. Our Son Jung-in tells us more.
Seoul's foreign ministry says the 18-year-old man surnamed Kim was last seen on January 10th after leaving a hotel in Kilis, a town that straddles the Turkey-Syria border. His disappearance came to light 2 days later when Kim's travel companion, a Korean national in his 40s, reported him missing to the Korean embassy in Ankara. A Turkish daily newspaper reported on Saturday that Kim had crossed the border into Syria to join the Islamic State militant group after exchanging emails with one of its members. Authorities in Seoul initially cast doubt on the allegations, saying they had found no substantive evidence he was in contact with IS. However, new clues have come to light. Police in Korea say they found some photos on the teenager's computer showing IS members holding rifles and the group's distinctive black flag. And an employee of the hotel where Kim was staying in Kilis reportedly said he was wearing an Islamic-style headscarf and was carrying a full backpack as he left the hotel. The hotel employee said he thought Kim might have been planning on going to Syria, explaining that the area is a common route that foreign fighters take to join the terror group. Authorities in Korea and Turkey are working in close coordination to try and locate the teenager. If confirmed, it would mark the first known case of a Korean national joining Islamic State. Son Jung-in, ARIRANG News.
The Korean government has unveiled a very ambitious plan to attract tens of billions of dollars in investors' funds to take the country's tourism industry to the next level. It's planning to construct 2 new mega resorts containing casinos and other luxury facilities. Our Ji Myung-gil reports.
The plan calls for the prompt spending of nearly $16 billion previously earmarked for the development of 4 mega projects and aims to attract more than $7 billion in new investments for the construction of hotels, resorts, and theme parks for a total of $23 billion. The plan was formulated by the ministries of Finance, Tourism, and Land and other government agencies. One of the 4 mega projects would develop the land in the U.S. Army's Yongsan garrison in central Seoul. The other projects would develop land once used as the headquarters of Korea Electric Power Corporation, build auxiliary facilities for cogeneration plants in new towns, and expand OLED display assembly lines. To boost the country's tourism industry, the government will build 2 resorts with new investment targets of nearly $930 million each. The resorts will have hotels, conference halls, fine dining, shopping malls, leisure and sports facilities, medical facilities, and casinos, which will only be open to foreign tourists. The government says it will also aim to attract funds to expand the number of hotels nationwide to cope with the increasing number of foreign tourists every year.
We expect some $1 billion to be available to construct 5,000 hotel rooms by 2017.
The government also plans to authorize the opening of 4 new duty-free shops, 3 in Seoul and 1 on Jeju Island. In addition, the government hopes to designate 6 new high-tech centers in urban areas and will provide more than $18 billion this year in the form of loans to innovative tech companies. Kim Hyung-gil, ARIRANG News.
Meanwhile, Korea's producer prices dropped for the 5th straight month in December, dipping to their lowest point in 4 years. The Bank of Korea says producer prices went down 0.9% last month from a month earlier. The index marked a 2% decline from the previous year. The central bank attributed the slide to falling global oil prices that dragged down prices of petroleum goods by more than 10% in December from a month ago. Since the producer price index serves as a leading indicator for the consumer price index, this means inflation is likely to remain low. The data follows the central bank's cut in its inflation outlook for this year to 1.9%. And Korea's mobile advertising market is expected to top $925 million this year. This means it'll account for 1/3 of the nation's total online advertising market. A report by local media firm DMC Media shows the mobile advertising market will grow 27% compared to last year due to more and more people using smartphones in the country. The report goes on to say that more mobile advertisements will be in the form of moving animation, videos, and even real-time bidding this year. In addition, Korea's online advertising market is expected to grow 9% this year, topping $2.8 billion. Korean consumers have long been very loyal to Korean-made products, but the tide seems to be turning. A new report is saying that Koreans are now looking at quality and price over where the product is actually from. This is according to the British Weekly Economist. It says more Koreans are shopping through non-Korea-based websites to save money. The Weekly adds that there was a time when Korean celebrities swapped their BMWs for Hyundais to show their patriotism, but such trends have run their course. It cites 2009 as the point when such patriotic consumerism first lost its edge when Apple launched its iPhone in Korea and seized a quarter of smartphone sales in just 1 year. The Economist also pointed out that Korea's free trade agreements opened up more choices for Koreans. The ecosystem for startups in Korea is starting to blossom, so much so that some believe Seoul is set to become Asia's next Silicon Valley in the coming years. The government has thrown its full support behind nurturing startups, dishing out tens of billions of dollars in grants and other subsidies to small and mid-sized businesses, including startups. So for the first in our 5-part series on startups here in Korea, here's our Kwon So-ah.
Over the past 35 years, only 3 startups have made it to the top 100 companies in terms of market capitalization in Korea. The fact highlights that conglomerates still dominate the Korean economy. But there are signs the corporate landscape is changing. The number of startups in Korea has been breaking records in recent years, reaching nearly 30,000 last year. That's more than triple the number seen during the dot-com bubble from the late 1990s to the early 2000s. The number of serious investors has grown too. Almost $1.3 billion was poured into startups last year, marking a 27% rise from 3 years ago. The startup ecosystem has also strengthened with a rise in angel investors, accelerators, and networks. Startup Alliance, a joint effort between the government and private sector, for example, arranges special events to connect startups with potential partners and clients.
Compared to Canada, where I'm from, Korean government, a lot of Korean institutions providing a really good environment to the people who are preparing to start a business. For example, this kind of a meeting and providing really good information, and there are a lot of seminars.
Experts say the new startup wave is different from the previous boom, when e-commerce was still a fledgling business and internet connections were clunky. Now, net access is instant and easy, and more importantly, mobile.
A lot of small startups, they're trying to connect some kind of services to the smartphone and more efficiently than existing offline businesses. So there will be a lot of new innovations on that front.
President Park Geun-hye wants startups to lead her administration's drive to transform Korea into a creative economy. She has vowed to cut through red tape and provide financial incentives to them. In line with this, the government has earmarked $92 billion this year to support small and mid-sized businesses, including startups. Getting off the ground is one thing, but turning startups into profitable businesses is another. Korea's #1 web portal Naver, one of the most successful startups that survived the dot-com crash, is also providing practical help. It's opening a startup accelerator this year in Seoul's version of Silicon Valley, the Taeheran Valley. That area will also house a government-led tech startup campus and the third Google campus in the world.
The success of startups is key to realizing the government's creative economy plan, which in turn is key to getting the economy back on its feet. Kwon So-ah, ARIRANG News.
Well, eating, but also drinking healthy has become one of the major pursuits for Koreans in recent years. And this has made people choose water over juice or any other beverages, leading to a boost in Korea's bottled water market. Nowadays, you can even find trendy water stores stocked with dozens of varieties, from sparkling to glacial, staffed with specially trained water experts to help you make your choice. Here's our Park Ji-won with this week's Industry Insight.
Korea's bottled water market is estimated to hit about $5.5 million in 2014. The market has almost quadrupled over the past 15 years, and last year alone it grew by some 10%. Currently, there are around 100 domestic brands of bottled water in Korea. But the hands-down top seller is Jeju Samdasu, the #1 brand for 16 years running. Let's take a look. Jeju Samdasu has been the invincible market leader since it was launched in the late 1990s. Produced and bottled by the Jeju Special Self-Governing Province Development Corporation, Jeju Samdasu racked up some $206 million in sales revenue last year, a market share of over 35%.
The reason for the continued support from Korean consumers is the unparalleled water quality. Jeju Island has one of the highest levels of precipitation in Korea. The rainfall permeates underground, forming vast groundwater resources. Jeju Island's volcanic rocks function as a natural filter, resulting in clean and naturally mineral-enriched water.
With Jeju Samdasu firmly in the lead, the competition for the #2 spot has been fierce. As of the end of 2014, Baeksansu, a brand launched in 2012 by food and beverage conglomerate Nongsim, has taken the highly coveted second position with a 5.4% market share. While Korea's bottled water market grew about 10% last year, Baeksansu's revenue expanded over 30% from the previous year.
There are three conditions for good water resources: excellent water quality, a clean environment, and abundance of water. Baekdusan Mountain meets all three conditions, and that's why Baeksansu is bottled there.
With the growing interest in health and well-being in the nation, sales of bottled water have outpaced the sales of juice, which tends to contain sugar and artificial colors, for the first time. Now that water is one of the most popular beverages, consumers are developing a water palate and a flair for water and food pairings. And premium water bars like this, which sells over 100 bottled water brands, are gaining a foothold. At the bar, Water sommeliers offer their advice about which types of water will best suit consumers' needs.
There are many types of bottled water, from glacial water to deep sea water to spring water. The taste depends on the mineral content and the water's pH. And now that drinking bottled water is now considered as a part of a health and beauty regimen, the market's growth is expected to accelerate in coming years.
Another fast-growing segment is sparkling water. While still in its infant stage, the fizzy drink has quadrupled its market share in just 5 years, and it's estimated to have reached some $32 million last year. And being that it accounted for about 70% of all imported bottled water in Korea, it's estimated to grow at an even faster rate than the still water market. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
On the busy and ever-changing streets of Seoul, a little bubble from the Joseon dynasty has been able to remain unchanged. Our Im Yoon-hee joins us to tell us more.
Good afternoon. So this find, actually, researchers have confirmed that it dates back to the 16th century, making it over 500 years old. And all researchers had to do was look down. Take a look at this next report.
The busy Jongno-gu district in the heart of Seoul is always undergoing some kind of construction. And recently, on Gongpyeongdong Street 61, a discovery was made while clearing the way for a new building. 2 of the streets in this area of the bustling city have been untouched since the 16th century.
Usually, a property is divided by the topography and physical layout of the land. But the truth is, with these streets, there has strangely been no change for the past 500 years.
The archaeological site also contains a collection of jars, ceramics, and tools used by the people who once lived here during the Joseon dynasty. Perhaps most interestingly, the discovery reveals that contrary to prior knowledge, members of the aristocratic class lived alongside people from the lower and middle classes.
This is an area where you can see the houses of both aristocrats and average citizens. It's a valuable mix of different artifacts from the 16th century Joseon dynasty.
Though the surrounding buildings and the people have changed, these special roads have become a rare memory lane, containing impressions of Korea made over hundreds of years.
Okay, so how are these streets able to remain intact over so many years?
Right, so a long time. So first of all, these streets are only 3 meters wide, which is probably a big reason why they were able to stay intact. But at the same time, the houses that were built in the area, originally the Korean houses that were built during the Joseon dynasty, they were in fact built over by houses during the Japanese colonial invasion. And after that, they just kept building houses on top of those. So they never really changed the street structure of it.
All right, then, we wonder, what are the future plans for these streets now?
So they do have plans to build 20-story buildings on top of the street, but the Cultural Heritage Administration is trying to push for them to keep this site intact and to keep it for the future, to preserve it. And so ideally, it would be perfect to keep that for the future generations. But it's in the heart of Seoul, in a very expensive, very prized area. So we'll have to see what they decide.
Well, definitely a valuable part of the city, right? And let's hope that they, keep these roads intact and unchanged, and maybe keep building those new buildings on top of what's already there.
Keep the streets there.
Okay, thanks for your report.
You're very welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michelle Park here with the latest weather forecast. Here in Seoul, we started the day with a morning that wasn't too cold, and we'll have daytime highs that are above the seasonal averages at between 4 to 10 degrees Celsius. Now that all the snow clouds have moved on, we have clear skies nationwide, so it'll remain nice and sunny. However, the clouds weren't enough to get rid of the dry conditions on the west coast of the peninsula. Now, along with that, the air quality isn't looking too great either, especially for people in the west due to the influence of fine dust and yellow fine dust flowing in from China. Now, with that in mind, let's go over to our readings for today. Seoul will peak up to 4 this afternoon, while the southern cities such as Gwangju and Busan will be hitting higher at 8 and 10 degrees respectively. Now moving over to other regions such as Jeju Island gets up to 10 as well. Dokdo hits down to 5 while Mount Kumgang drops low to -6 degrees. Well, that's all for now, Michelle Park, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
All right, that's all from me at this hour. I'll be back with more at 4 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.